Before we get started on the border, which is such an important issue, I just want to get your reaction. Congress has had about 5 or 6 days now to absorb the idea that there's an IRS whistleblower who says that there was political meddling in the Hunter Biden case. I know Congress is taking it seriously. How important was it for Jason Smith, the chairman, today to tell the IRS, you protect that man?
I think it's very, very important because we want anyone who has seen and heard or read any indication that there's corruption going on at these agencies absolutely needs to come forward. And the whistleblower law is very clear. They are to be protected. And I think that Chairman Smith was right on the money to warn the Internal Revenue Service that there better not be any retaliation.
Just a little gentle reminder about that.
That's right.
I wanted to shift to the border. A lot of news stories have broken, but Alejandro Mayorkas calling illegal immigration irregular migration kind of reminds me of them referring to inflation as transitory. But he announced this new plan, some different parameters to help deal with what's happening at the border, opening up processing facilities in Guatemala and Colombia, being stricter at the border, which I think any measure of strictness at the border would be more than what there has been. What do you make of this plan, and what do you make of the term irregular migration?
It's just another euphemism. It's just the same as he has operational control over the border. They denied there was a border crisis for the longest time. He cannot bring himself to recognize that there is not only a crisis, but an absolute disaster. Close to 6 million individuals coming across the border since he has taken office repeatedly, coming over from 147 different countries. 1 million, over 1 million have been apprehended so far just in this fiscal year alone. And as we know, the deadly drugs that are coming in and from China, through Mexico, killing over 100,000 Americans a year now. And then we can't forget about the diseases that are coming in as well. And the pandemic for COVID may be over, but let me tell you something. There are record numbers of tuberculosis and polio that are coming in, diseases that have been really eradicated over the last 100 years. And now I'll give you an example. In South Texas alone, they have tripled the rate of tuberculosis. And this is a TB type that is really drug resistant, putting many Americans at great jeopardy. Polio, that terrible, debilitating disease that people were so fearful of back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and until they came up with a vaccine for it, now rearing its ugly head again to start inflicting its horrible damage, crippling children, killing children that we hadn't seen in really, in 50, 60, 70 years. Unbelievable that we're hearing this word irregular migration. Mayorkas simply will not recognize the fact that we have an enormous problem down there that is changing America forever and bringing in really hundreds of suspected terrorists on the terrorist watch list have come in just since this fiscal year, and really just doesn't seem to have his eyes open. It's crazy.
Yeah, if you don't want to see it, I guess you just close your eyes in the Biden administration. But the rest of America sees it and they feel it. Sarah, we started the conversation about a whistleblower. I want to turn to a second whistleblower, a young lady yesterday from HHS coming forward saying the government is acting as a middleman in a massive child trafficking scheme that involves the cartels and criminal agents on both sides of the border. Very, very poignant testimony and a real cry for help for these children that are really vulnerable all the way here and then even after they get in the country. Your thoughts on what she told Congress yesterday?
She is telling us the truth. It's something that we've been suspecting now for well over 2 years. I've been on that border numbers of times, taking congressional delegations, my colleagues with me to South Texas, to Arizona, Southern California, seeing exactly what's going on down there. And quite frankly, there are 85,000 children that they're unaccounted for. These are UACs, unaccompanied children, and the HHS is supposed to keep up with them. DHS has them and then turns them over to HHS, and they're being turned over to so-called families. I was down there on one trip and asked an HHS official, "Are you vetting these so-called families for criminal background checks?" "No, we're not doing that. We don't have the resources." Are you doing DNA testing? Are you sure these are families, blood kin?" "No, we just don't have the resources." However, during the Trump administration, they did somehow find the resources to do some of the testing, DNA testing. But now the Biden administration simply has opened the border up so much that they just process them in by the hundreds and hundreds of thousands, and they are aiding and abetting child sex rings, human slavery, indentured servitude. All the evidence is pointing that these kids are being abused over and over again, and it's inconceivable that the United States of America, a country based on the rule of law, the Judeo-Christian faith, now has put this many children at risk. You can't wrap your mind around this, but this is what's happening, nevertheless.
Yeah. Well, and in addition to the trafficking problem, fentanyl is a huge issue. And sometimes when I watch the messaging coming out of this administration, it feels like I'm looking at spokespeople from the Ministry of Truth, because Karine Jean-Pierre said something at the press podium about what the GOP is doing with regards to border security. And I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. But check this out.
House Republicans promised to put cops on the beat. Instead, they're fighting to put fentanyl on the street by defunding Border Patrol. Their proposal makes clear that only things House Republicans are committed to giving to Americans are increased crime, lower economic growth, and more manufacturing jobs sent back to China. The Speaker's position is that unless the President and the Senate agree to that job-killing, cost-increasing, anti-farm, anti-healthcare, anti-education agenda.
Congressman, I will admit I have not read every letter of every word of every piece of legislation that Republicans have proposed or passed, but I'm pretty sure that I would be hard-pressed to find anything in there that Republicans are defunding Border Patrol. To what is she referring to?
I have no idea. I've never heard such spinmeister, the master of spinning. That's all you can say. That's just unbelievable imagination. This is coming from the Democrat Party that's been wanting to defund the police for 3 years now, since the pandemic and the riots that happened all across the nation. And how they can say that Republicans don't want to fund the Border Patrol. What the Democrats want to do is to take this money and simply facilitate the more processing of illegal immigrants coming across the border, to incentivize more to come across. What we want to make sure is that these funds are used to enforce the border laws. We are a country of laws.